This is September 2nd, 2025, and you know, I wanted to just document this in the event that it would ever get to you, my grandchildren, because I realize that things could be blown up and forgotten. But just because I understand things could be blown up and forgotten, it doesn't make me want to not, play the odds, so to speak. I mean, press my luck, so to speak. I mean, at least give it a try and gesture, so to speak, to put this out there to you. And last time I talked, I was talking about, Sun Tzu and you. And this time now, it just so happens, it just comes right before me, and that's why I say I'm triggered. I gotta say this. If I didn't say this, I feel like I would be acting remiss. Remiss is like when you don't do what you should do. And so anyway, look, this guy here, he was a privileged guy. I'm pretty sure that. Like I'm gonna just show this part right here. What somebody is saying, and I'm thinking this guy might be saying it. But before this, I don't know if he's reading out of The Great Gatsby or where he's getting this dialogue from, but he gives a real good dialogue on just what it is, the difference between the really rich people that are really rich. I mean, like super rich, and there's a lot of people, not in context of the whole world, but it doesn't mean. I mean, they're running things basically. So I just wanted to show that, because I just wanted to say that the Buddha was also rich, and that is what you got to understand about the Buddha. He was a prince in India. So, I mean, I'd be surprised if I got it wrong. Prince in India. And I've listened to his stuff, on YouTube, and I got the gist of it down. Because after all, I thought my dad was looking into Buddha from after the grave. I mean, he's dead. And it was my impression that I thought, he was studying the Buddha. Right? Okay? I was thinking, what my mom was doing too. And she's dead. And she was talking about, come into my house, and I'll show you the power of God. I don't know, two different approaches. But they got together. For me, I felt, I can't go into all detail right now because I don't remember every specific thing, but I know I documented it, and that's for my benefit and I hope for yours. I believe my parents came together for me, to say something to you. Well, my mom was always telling me when I was a kid. She didn't have to tell me over and over. She just told me when I was going over to Mike Johnson's place, and his family, was Republican, and they had a lot of money, a lot more than me and my brother and my mom, But nevertheless, we were friends. And one time when I ran away from home, I stayed in the attic of his garage. And so, but my mom told me that the Republicans, the GOP, was for the rich, and the Democrats, they were for the poor, or the working class, and the poor. They're for charity for the poor and to help the working class. And the rich are to keep the rich staying rich and unaccountable for you know, a lot of stuff that they could pay for if they just do away with a little bit of their rich privilege. I mean, nobody's got to be that rich. Anyway, so this guy here, you know, he talks about, he shows what it is to be rich, how that they can just, you know, if they want to be eating a certain kind of meat that he calls Shih Tzu braised beef tender, Shih Tzu, which I thought was a dog, but Shih Tzu braised beef tenderloin. If they want to eat that, they can send their jet to, I don't know, another home of theirs, you know, somewhere more than driving distance away. They got to use a jet. Just take the jet over there to the other place, you know, get a car and go pick up my what I want to eat. It's in my freezer, and bring it back to me, and have it here by, you know, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 8 o'clock tonight, because I'm definitely going to be hungry at that time frame, and I'm going to have somebody with me. Okay, if they want that, they can have that. They take a jet, go get the beef. All right, the Shih Tzu beef tenderloin, whatever. All right, they can do that. It's a different world. And this is what this broadcast from, the guy's name is Chris Hedges. And I think he used to be, well, he's kind of like the Buddha, in that the Buddha was a prince, and when he seen the suffering, you know, in the common land or whatever, you know, the other people that wasn't in the prince court, you know, he realized the disparity and the difference and the suffering, and then he wanted to find a solution to the condition of suffering. And that's how the Buddha developed his whole practice, was in response to the human condition of suffering. So he became he's like a monk. He gave away all his riches for that exploration, and you know, he brought it all down to the self-evident. And what is self-evident? The same thing that our Constitution is based on, you know, that it is self-evident, of certain things that are self-evident, one of them being that all men are created equal. That's the main one. But that's the main one that is always up in the air about how one person is going to be treated as opposed to another, and the way the societal norms, you know, should be. And when you're talking about privilege, like today, you know, we're talking about the privilege of the elite, even sex traffic women for their sexual gratification, which is a privilege so far beyond the norms of common people that is unheard of and almost impossible to think they could ever exist, but yet it does. And these people have so much privilege that they can just buy other people. Okay? You know, they have as children, for example, they learn that there's a lot of other people beneath them, and that they can order, you know, the chef or the butler for this or the butler for that, or the butler for this house or the butler for that house to do their bidding. And that's, you know, common practice for them, acceptable standard order of procedure, which is not a standard order of procedure for any kind of experience that I've ever been close to. But I mean, I haven't even been close to being a butler of a rich person, you know. But that's where, see, the whole thing about slavery, they want to say that being a slave for a rich person, you know, was better than being killed, or better than the life that you would have had to live if you didn't be a slave for a rich person. Uh, that's what that's where in the differentiation of like we're standing on the economical and sociological and political standpoints for looking at it from those perspectives. Well, you gotta understand what the real deal is, and make a stand. They're talking about like deep state and stuff. Well, it's not really my interest to be trying to figure out like who's all in the deep state, because that's just a placeholder. It's an elusive term, and there's a bunch of deep states. You're not going to deny that our whole civilization is basically run by deep states. People that work under the scenes, and then the populace are, fed one thing, but the real deal is behind the scenes. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you this here, because see, the Sun Tzu, what he does, I mean not Sun Tzu, the Buddha. Well, that's not I'm talking about Sun Tzu. This is I'm talking about the Buddha. The Buddha, what he does is he puts things in their place and takes certain things, like the privilege of the wealthy. It's an illusion if you think that that's going to bring them happiness. The happiness can't be bought with privilege. So right there, that like disqualifies any kind of say that privilege is going to have in the discussion of the the scale between suffering and non-suffering in the world. In your soul. All right, like how you perceive things. So I'm gonna play you this, and I'm gonna show you what this says right here real quick. Hey, now what it says is, most of all, the Starkey students learn never to judge their employers, whom they call principals. If a principal wants to feed her Shih Tzu bred braised beef tenderloin steaks every night, the butler should serve it up with a smile. If a principal is in Palm Beach and wants to send the jet to New York to pick up a Chateau Latour from his Southampton cellar, the butler makes it happen, no questions asked. All right. So that's the standard order of procedure. When you're talking about certain stratus of our society, the ones that Donald Trump gave $1 trillion in tax cut to, and then put the $1 trillion in tax through the tariffs and stuff, and onto the American people, and pay for all that. All right. Now I'm gonna put this on pause right here, because then I'm gonna rewind it to the beginning, because he does a talk, and like I said, I don't know if he's like quoting out of The Great Gatsby, a book written a long time ago, or A Tale of Two Cities, which was another classic written a long time ago about the disparity between two classes of society and so forth. But I'm gonna pause this, rewind it, and then I'm gonna play the other part. Okay, I just listened to first part, and he says, F. Scott Fitzgerald said to Hemingway, okay, talking about the rich. And this is where he begins his conversation. And I just wanted to point this out, because so that you actually understand, because like, if you never see it, like I've never actually even seen this, then you don't really understand first-hand experience how disparate our society is economically and politically and socially, and who's pulling the strings, and the stuff that goes on in the background, and the snow job or the con job or whatever is put out in public spectacle for people to fight over, so that they think that they're actually being involved in the real deal. Well, the real deal is going on somewhere else. And it's basically from contests and struggles between corporations and rich people and what they want to see and so forth like that. And then they come up with ideas about the deep state and everything, and try to define the deep state, and then they try to cascade a certain group of people, and everything is always played for advantage, and there always might be a little bit of truth in one thing or another. But that's why the best thing to do is to really get away from the sovereignty of a grouping. Okay, because if you try to group stuff, for example, you should be able to see things kind of like in groups. But if you try to group things and then label or people, organizations, or whatever like that, then you actually kind of tie your hands and make the conversation that you have to involve yourself in not a conversation that you want to involve yourself in at all, because it's a given way to that kind of conversation is just a trick to keep a whole bunch of people distracted. Right? Distracted of what's really going on. And like all the stuff that Donald Trump is doing today, the worst of everything. People suffering, real suffering, going into states, waging war on the Democrats. All the black mayors, all the black people, they're really getting it right up the ass if it can be done by the Donald Trump regime, because what they stand for is kicking ass. Right? Putting people in their place. Making people servants to what they say. Is this narrative or hit the road, Jack? It's my way or the highway. And if you got power, you can make it so. All right. Look, man, a lot of people are probably going to die from what they're already doing. Like, abolishing the Center of Disease Control. Abolishing that? Why? So people can die from disease. They put a guy in the head of the president of the whole thing that doesn't know jack shit about anything, about medical stuff. He ain't in science. He deals in propaganda. He's just a spokesperson for a bullshit kind of organization, attempt coming from the president of the United States of America. Anyway, so now, look, I'm just going to go ahead and play this, because he does a good talk about, I think he was a rich guy, and I think he's kind of like the Buddha. So if you listen to him talk, it's kind of going to be like, actually putting what the Buddha says into practical terms, and disempowering the whole myth or concept of if there's any virtue and value for any kind of like way you're going to judge this experience and what it means and everything, a short time. Like everybody dies, and they only got like about 80 years, somewhere around there, and they're dead, for sure. That's why Trump's he's like, I think he is almost like 80. I don't know if he's 80 yet or not, but I don't think he's 80 yet. I think he's like just approaching 80. But he's gonna be dead soon. Looks like he's already dead. I've seen a picture of him. Looks like he's dying to me. Anyway, so here goes. I'm just gonna play it from here. All right.
The rich are different from us, F. Scott Fitzgerald is said to have remarked to Ernest Hemingway, to which Hemingway allegedly replied, yes, they have more money. The exchange, although it never actually took place, sums up a wisdom Fitzgerald had that eluded Hemingway. The rich are different. The cocoon of wealth and privilege permits the rich to turn those around them into compliant workers, hangers-on, servants, flatterers, and sycophants. Wealth breeds, as Fitzgerald illustrated in The Great Gatsby and a short story, The Rich Boy, a class of people for whom human beings are disposable commodities. Colleagues, associates, employees, kitchen staff, servants, gardeners, tutors, personal trainers, even friends and family bend to the whims of the wealthy or disappear. Once oligarchs achieve unchecked economic and political power, as they have in the United States, the citizens too become disposable. The public face of the oligarchic class bears little resemblance to the private face. I, like Fitzgerald, was thrown into the embrace of the upper crust when young. I was shipped off as a scholarship student at the age of 10 to an exclusive New England boarding school. I had classmates whose fathers they rarely saw, arrived at the school in their limousines, accompanied by personal photographers and at times their mistresses, so the press could be fed images of rich and famous men playing the role of good fathers. I spent times in the homes of the ultra-rich and powerful, watching my classmates, who were children, callously order around men and women who worked as their chauffeurs, cooks, nannies, and servants. When the sons and daughters of the rich get into serious trouble, there are always lawyers, publicists, and political personages to protect them. George W. Bush's life, along with Donald Trump's, is a case study in the insidious affirmative action for the rich. The rich have a snobbish disdain for the poor despite well-publicized acts of philanthropy and the middle class. These lower classes are viewed as uncouth parasites, annoyances that have to be endured, at times placated, and always controlled in the quest to amass more power and money. My hatred of authority, along with my loathing for the pretensions, heartlessness, and sense of entitlement of the rich, comes from living among the privileged. It was a deeply unpleasant experience, but it exposed to me their insatiable selfishness and hedonism. I learned as a boy who were my enemies. The inability to grasp the pathology of our oligarchic rulers is one of our gravest faults. We have been blinded to the depravity of our ruling elite by the relentless propaganda of public relations firms that work on behalf of corporations and the rich. Compliant politicians, clueless entertainers, and our vapid, corporate-funded popular culture, which holds up the rich as leaders to emulate and assures us that through diligence and hard work we can join them, keep us from seeing the truth. They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. Fitzgerald wrote of the wealthy couple at the center of Gatsby's life. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together and let other people clean up the mess they had made. Aristotle, Machiavelli, Alex de Tocqueville, Adam Smith, and Karl Marx all began from the premise that there is a natural antagonism between the rich and the masses. Those who have too much of the goods of fortune, strength, wealth, friends, and the like are neither willing nor able to submit to authority, Aristotle wrote in Politics. The evil begins at home, for when they are boys, by reason of the luxury in which they are brought up, they never learn, even at school, the habit of obedience. Oligarchs, these philosophers knew, are schooled in the mechanisms of manipulation, subtle and overt repression, and the exploitation to protect their wealth and power at our expense. Foremost among their mechanisms of control is the control of ideas. Ruling elites ensure that the established intellectual class is subservient to an ideology, in this case, free market, capitalism, neoliberalism, globalization, that justifies their greed. The ruling ideas are nothing more than the ideal expression of the dominant material relationships. Marx wrote, the dominant material relationships grasped as ideas. Joining me to discuss the pathology of our billionaire class of rulers is Rob Larson, a professor of economics at Tacoma Community College and the author of
So, I just wanted to point out what he said. Now, this other guy that's going to be talking, like, he wrote a book on it. Mastering the Universe, the Obscene Wealth of the Ruling Class. And then I can't see what's on that sign right there because it's blocked out from the timeline overlaying it. But then why you should hate them even more. Talking about the rich class. All right. That's why this guy says, well, this is what he's going to present why you should hate these guys. All right? And because if you realize what the actual deal is and what the difference is, you would say this is obscene. You're making all these people suffer for your privilege? There's something wrong with this picture. And so, you know, I just wanted to show what that guy said. You know, so he started out, you know, quote, like he started out, you know, talking about somebody else. I think what they said. But then he started talking about, he said, I was this person that I'm talking about right now, and I've seen this. Here's my experience. And I grew to hate it. And that's what he says. And then he goes into like talking about I don't know, Aristotle. Founding ideas about this disparity between the rich and the poor, and how big that chasm usually actually is, and it's been like this for a long time. But it's a manipulation in our society. People today, I mean, we have AI. I mean, the knowledge of today has exponentially grown so much that we can have an AI system just do our query for us, and you know, it could encompass, like, you know, from the beginning of time until now, and they hand it out to you on a silver platter through the use of AI and quantum computing. And in the higher realms of government, they can do the same thing, because they have, this is like, it's actually like China, except it's not, you know, exposed. Like China, everybody knows this is a deal. Everything you do is monitored. Well, everything you do in America is also monitored, but you just don't know it yet. And if you listen to the right people, you'll understand this. Everything is monitored, you just don't know it yet. They know what the hell's really going on. The people that have access, you know, to the records that are kept, you know, just out of standard operation and procedure, you know, for a company that ain't disposing what they're actually contracted out to do or anything like that, because that would be in violation of the American strategy that some things have to be hid and not known by the mass populace. But question is, can they be trusted? And a lot of times they can't be trusted, and that's where the deep state comes in. The people, when they refer to the deep state, they're talking about people that you can't trust. So, anyway, so on this one, I just wanted to give my grandchildren, you know, because last time I talked about Sun Tzu, and this one, you know, is really important for you to understand the lesson of the Buddha, and in that way disempower these things that think that they really have power and project it. It's the power and it's the life and stuff like that that you need to strive for or whatever, I don't know. But it's a deception, all right? And that's what that's what the Buddha teaches. Now Sun Tzu, you know, is going to teach you how to, you know, like actually like conform reality to what if you're fighting for goodness and fairness, you know, conform reality to that. Because there's a whole bunch of other stuff that is trying to conform reality to, like, you know, the rich, the privileged, and they're 97% of the other population of the rest of the country, and basically really even representative of the potential of the rest of the world. Because America is supposed to be like a metaphor for the rest of the world that democracy and fairness works. But right now, it's like telling the world that it don't work. And that's why America right now is going to autocracy. But the fight is on. All right? The fight is on. And it's actually a true fight. People hide in the shadows. You don't know what side they're going to take. Okay? A lot of people hide in the shadows. And when they feel like they made a wrong decision, they retaliate. So, you know, that's why the thing that the rich people hate the most is if they, whether or not they can control what everybody thinks. Okay? That's why I'm saying. Just beware of that and don't give them any power like the Buddha wouldn't. The Buddha wouldn't, and Sun Tzu would be on guard about how just to handle this kind of situation. See? How do you handle when somebody's lying to you? And you know it. Now the Buddha says, the first thing, understand the futility of their ways. And a person who's following Sun Tzu principles would also say that with dignity. You know, because Sun Tzu is, he's not just for the despots. I mean, the despots might use his ideology and his kind of spirit and stuff like that. They might try to harness that and actually use it, but Sun Tzu is a equal, broker or something, equal player. I mean, anybody can use his principles. They can use them for evil or for good. I'm trying to show you how to use them for good. I guess that would be it. You know, I talk about Jesus. I talk about Sun Tzu. I'm talking about the Buddha now. And, you know, the Buddha talks about, conditions for, substantiating conditions and stuff. You know, the thing is, what the Buddha and the Sun Tzu point out together would be, truth is a sharper sword than lies. Okay, if you got a sword, it has truth on one side and lies on the other. Because lies can be hurtful too, they can cut. Truth can also cut, all right? Well, I don't know where that metaphor goes, but you should try to cut with the side of truth more than the side of lies. All right, and the Buddha is going to tell you, what to really value, and that the stuff that is like imaginary, the grass is greener on the other side, mythology of what it would be like. Well, you know what? That might be just a bunch of bullshit. You don't know nothing about that, so don't pay that no mind. I'm just saying. The Buddha, I'm telling you, don't pay attention to bullshit. And then Jesus will show you how to be good. All right.